it's important that we point this out. One of the things that I brought up this morning in talking about Caitlin Clark is that some of the players, you want to use the word jealousy, fine. You want to use the word envy, fine.
Hey there, everyone. Today's video is one you absolutely cannot afford to miss. We're about to dive into a story that is shaking up the world of women's basketball like never before. You know, it's not every day that a player comes along who redefines the game, someone who pulls in massive crowds and dominates headlines. But what if I told you that this same player, despite being a top-tier athlete, is being treated unfairly, and not just by her opponents, but by the very league that should be supporting her? Caitlin Clark, a name that's been lighting up arenas and drawing record-breaking viewership, is facing a battle beyond the court. It's not just about wins and losses for her anymore. It's about being constantly targeted, pushed around, and overlooked by officials. And here's the kicker: instead of being protected, she's being left to fend for herself. But hold on, before you think this is just another sports drama, let me tell you why this story is different. This isn't just about Caitlin Clark's personal struggle, it's about what it says for the future of women's sports as a whole. We're talking about respect, professionalism, and the very integrity of the game itself. You'll want to stay until the very end, because we're unpacking everything from the questionable refereeing to the behind-the-scenes politics that could be driving one of the WNBA's brightest stars away. This isn't just a game anymore, this is a turning point for the league, and you won't believe how deep it really goes. Caitlin Clark, a player who has been nothing short of sensational, is now at the center of a storm brewing within the WNBA. Known for her electrifying performances and ability to draw massive crowds, Clark has quickly become a fan favorite. Yet, despite her undeniable talent, she's facing a problem that no star should ever have to deal with: constant physical targeting. And what makes it worse? The officials seem to be turning a blind eye. It's as if they're more focused on maintaining the status quo than on protecting their brightest talent. Clark herself has spoken out, expressing her frustration with how physical the games have become. She's out there putting up 30-point performances, running the show on the court, and yet, she's being treated like an afterthought when it comes to fairness. Instead of playing basketball, it's almost as if she's fighting a battle every time she steps onto the court, dodging elbows, taking hits that go uncalled, and still expected to keep quiet and play her game. But here's the real question: why isn't the league stepping in to protect her? This isn't just about a player having a tough time, this is about the WNBA allowing its most marketable star to be treated like she doesn't matter. You'd think a player of her caliber would get some level of protection, right? Wrong. And now Caitlin Clark is left wondering whether staying in this league is even worth it anymore. Is this really the kind of environment the WNBA wants to foster, where talent is left to fend for itself? It's no surprise she's eyeing opportunities abroad, looking for a place where her skills will be respected and her safety isn't at risk. Imagine giving everything you have, game after game, and still feeling like no one has your back. That's where Caitlin Clark finds herself now. She's not just playing basketball, she's battling against opponents who seem to have one goal: shut her down, no matter what it takes. And while the other players are throwing elbows and pushing the limits of what's allowed, Clark is left wondering where the line is. Why aren't these fouls being called? Why is she getting punished for speaking out, while others seem to get away with murder on the court? It's clear that Clark's frustration isn't just about a few bad calls. This has been building up game after game. Every time she gets knocked down, every time an elbow flies her way, and nothing happens, it chips away at her trust in the league. And can you blame her? She's carrying not just her team, but arguably the entire league in terms of popularity and viewership. The WNBA should be rallying behind her, protecting her as their star, but instead they're letting her get trampled by opponents who clearly see her as a threat. And what does she get for speaking up? More fouls, more bias, and a growing sense of being unwelcome. Instead of addressing the real problem, it's almost like the league is telling her to stay quiet and keep playing, no matter how rough it gets. But how long can someone take that? For Clark, the breaking point seems closer than ever. She's already hinted that a move to Europe might be on the horizon, a place where she might finally get the respect and treatment she deserves. And honestly, who could blame her? It's almost unbelievable when you think about it. The WNBA, a league that's been struggling for attention and relevance for years, finally has a breakout star who's pulling in massive crowds, breaking records, and making people actually care about women's basketball again. Caitlin Clark is not just another player, she's a once-in-a-generation talent. Her presence alone has boosted attendance and viewership to levels the league hasn't seen in years. but instead of nurturing this momentum, it feels like the league is doing everything it can to undermine her. Every game she plays, she faces an uphill battle not just against her opponents, but against the very system that should be supporting her. Players target her relentlessly, knowing that the officials won't intervene. It's not hard to see the impact this is having on her performance, too. Even with all the obstacles, she's still putting up incredible numbers, but at what cost? How much longer can she keep doing this without proper support? The WNBA claims to want to grow the game, to put women's sports on the map, but how can they expect that when they're treating their biggest star like she's disposable? The message they're sending is clear. Even if you're the best, even if you bring in the fans, if you speak out, you're on your own. It's no wonder Clark is considering other options. The league is practically pushing her away, and if she goes, they'll only have themselves to blame for losing the very player who's been carrying them on her back. As the pressure continues to build, you can almost feel the weight on Caitlin Clark's shoulders. Imagine being in her shoes for just a moment, expected to perform at an MVP level every game while enduring constant physicality and biased officiating. No one could blame her for feeling like she's been set up to fail. She's supposed to be the face of the WNBA, but instead of celebrating her success, the league is watching her get battered night after night, with no one stepping in to stop it. Even her teammates aren't always there to lift her up when it counts the most. Sure, she's the star, but basketball is still a team sport. How frustrating must it be to put in maximum effort, to carry the weight of the entire team, and then look around and see little to no support? When she's dropping 30 points and dishing out assists, but the rest of the squad seems more interested in going through the motions, it's got to be mentally exhausting. There's only so much one player can do on her own. And then there's the emotional toll. We often forget that behind the statistics and the highlight reels, these athletes are human. The constant grind, the physical punishment, and the feeling of being overlooked by the league, it all adds up. It's no wonder that Caitlin Clark is considering her options. Europe is calling, and the WNBA is at serious risk of losing their biggest star. If they don't wake up soon, they'll find themselves wondering why they didn't do more to protect her when they had the chance. As Caitlin Clark's frustrations continue to mount, it's not just her performances that are in the spotlight, it's the entire league, fans, analysts, and even some players have started to question what's really going on. How did things get to this point? How can a player who's doing so much for the game be left to fend for herself, while the league sits idly by? It's becoming more and more apparent that this situation isn't just affecting Clark. It's casting a shadow over the entire WNBA. The fans are already starting to speak up. They see what's happening. They've watched Clark take hit after hit without a single whistle blown in her favor. They've seen her fight to stay positive despite the odds stacked against her. But even the most loyal supporters can only stand by for so long. If the WNBA can't protect its star, what kind of message is that sending to the fans who show up to see her play? They're not just watching for the game, they're there for Caitlin Clark, and if she leaves, so might they. And then there's the financial side of things. Clark isn't just a player, she's a brand, a marketing powerhouse. Her presence alone has boosted ticket sales, merchandise, and television ratings. But if she walks away, what happens to all of that? The league's loss will be Europe's gain, and the WNBA will be left scrambling to fill the void. The warning signs are all there, but the real question is, will the WNBA act before it's too late? Or are they willing to watch their brightest star slip through their fingers? As the dust settles, it's becoming clear that Caitlin Clark's situation isn't just a passing issue, it's a critical moment for the WNBA. The league is standing at a crossroads, and the decisions they make now will shape their future. Clark's potential departure isn't just about one player leaving. It's about the message that sends to every rising star watching from the sidelines. If they see the league fail to protect and support their best talent, what's going to stop them from looking elsewhere when their time comes? Clark has already hinted at Europe as her next destination, and with each passing day, that possibility seems more real. In Europe, she could find the respect, fairness, and opportunities that have been missing here. She would play in leagues where her talent would be celebrated, where she could thrive without constantly worrying about being targeted or silenced. And, let's be honest, if she leaves, she'll take a big part of the WNBA's growing momentum with her. For the WNBA, this is a wake-up call. They need to act now, not only to keep Caitlin Clark, but to ensure that this kind of situation never happens again. The league needs to step up its game in every aspect, protect its players, enforce fair officiating, and show the world that they value the talent that's driving their success. Because if they don't, the consequences will be felt for years to come. In the end, this is more than just a sports story. It's about how a league treats its stars, and whether it values their contribution enough to fight for them. Caitlin Clark has already given everything she can, and now, the ball is in the WNBA's court. Will they rise to the occasion, or will they let one of the brightest stars in basketball slip away? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure: the WNBA's future is hanging in the balance, and the world is watching.